I might regret turning my AC off in a bit. Welcome weirdos, welcome back to my channel. My name is EmmaAbe and today I am doing August wrap-up. Here we go. It's that time of the month again. And yes, this is my new location, my new setting. Figured I would bring some elements from my last setup. I am back at school. I have to be at school because I have some in-person classes, which during a pandemic is fabulous. And right now, as of the filming of this video, there's almost 80 confirmed cases of COVID on campus. So fun. Anyway, so we'll see how long this lasts, how long this setup is. Today is August wrap-up, as you guys know, and I read 13 books in August. I started a bunch and I didn't finish. The first book is Blood of Elves by Andrzej Stropinski. This is like the first official book in the Witcher series. I don't hate it, but I also didn't love it. I think I'm gonna give it about like a 3 just because I wasn't really paying attention, didn't grab my attention a lot, and I just didn't care a lot about what was happening. So I'm gonna give it one more book. Let's see if I'm into it by this next book and if the issues that I didn't have with the very first book don't continue. I'm trying to think of like what else to say, but I can't really think of much else to say. I just did not care about this book, and it's as simple as that. All right, so next book, and that would be The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So this is the first time I ever read it. I did actually read it with a hard copy, but it was my brother's, and I didn't want to steal his copy and bring it to school with me because I knew that I was going to be at school. I really liked it. It is hard to read at sometimes, and I really liked how kind of small scale it was. I, unlike a lot of other people, didn't really need to see why Gilead fell. I didn't think it needed that. I'll get into that a little bit later in this video because I did read the Testaments this month as well. So I read this book because I'm trying to read all the books that won the Goodreads Choice Awards, and the Testaments did, and I figured, oh, before I read the Testaments, I should read Handmaid's Tale. I read this mostly with my eyeballs. There's like the last couple of chapters that I read on audiobook, except it wasn't the audiobook because it was just like a robot reading it because I just wanted to get it done. I really loved the world she created, and my brother actually had to do like a whole book report and stuff on it, and he said that everything in that book is based off of true events that women have experienced before. That was real shocking to hear, but I 10,000% believe it. I've watched 2 episodes of the Hulu series. It was just very shocking to see the genital mutilation in that, because I don't like genital mutilation. That is not a fun thing. The Handmaid's Tale follows this unnamed protagonist, and she is a handmaid in the Republic of Gilead. And a handmaid is basically someone who is still able to give birth. I'm very kind of confused about what makes the distinction between a handmaiden and just a woman who can have children but are married. I guess it's some sort of like punishment for women. I'm not really sure what gets a handmaid into a handmaid's position when they could be married, when in Gilead they have women who are married to men who can still have birth. So I think it makes sense in the transitional period that this book, The Handmaid's Tale, is set in, but I don't think it makes sense further along. I liked the abrupt ending, and I liked the discussion after. Really felt like I was in a lecture, and I really liked that. So the next book I actually read with just audiobook because I did not have the actual book at the time, but have since got it, and that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and this is a debut. I was blown away by it. I was not expecting much. I didn't know what to expect. I read this because it was in the sci-fi category for the Goodreads Choice Award. I should read more than just the winner of the category, so I picked this up. And yeah, I fucking loved it. Essentially, you have Gideon, who is this orphan that was placed in the ninth, like, clan thing. She isn't a necromancer herself, but she's this badass warrior chick, and she has to go with the daughter of like the leader of the clan, who is a necromancer, to go fight in this like competition thing to see who's going to be the emperor's necromancers. I was reading this, it's real complicated. I need to read it again, that is for sure. Hence I have this. I loved it. I felt so dumb because I was reading it and I was like, Gideon, you are eyeing this other woman. Gideon, you gay. You so gay. I'm like, no straight person talks about someone of the same gender that way. I was very much like, if the author tries to like retcon this and give her a boyfriend by the end of this story, I'm gonna be pissed. Queer baiting, we do not enjoy that, and they didn't. I completely missed the fact that it's supposed to be like about lesbian necromancers. I felt so stupid, but yeah, I really enjoyed Gideon the Ninth. I think I'm gonna give this like a tentative 5 out of 5. I need to read it again to make sure I get that position solidified, but I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This will just continue. Oh, okay. So this next book that I read is Rich People Problems by Kevin Kwan. And I do actually have a copy of this, but I did not want to bring it back to school with me. Yeah, again, I love this book. It's so good. The Crazy Rich Asian series has really been hitting it out of the park for me. I really love it. I'm so glad I read it. Yeah, this book, it hit me in the feels at some point. It almost made me cry. I'm just very sensitive when it comes to depictions of grief. So this is the conclusion. It's the third book in the series. I loved it. I thought it was a nice conclusion. I obviously want more from this world. I think I'm gonna read the other book that Kevin Kwan wrote. I don't know, maybe. This book delivers twists that you were not expecting, just like the books before it. It wraps up arcs that have been festering forever. I felt like there could have been more conclusion to the Jainism subplot. I wanted more of that, and why the grandmother felt the way she did about Jainism. I felt like that could have been a little bit developed more. Other than that, it was really solid. All of the characters are coming back together and they're solid. All the relationships, I love the way they're going. There's stuff that has been set up in the other books that are falling into bait. Whatever I rated the last 2 books, I'm gonna rate this one. I guess we shall go on to the next book. Okay, this book, I have an actual copy of it, but again, it's back in my hometown. And that is Empire of the Summer Moon, Quanah Parker and the Rise and Fall of the Comanches, the Most Powerful Indian Tribe in American History by S.C. Gwine. I picked it up because I wanted to read it and I felt like reading it, and then I had to put it down because I ran out of time to read the audiobook. I thoroughly enjoyed this one too. This is a solid nonfiction. It is extremely informative if you want to learn about the history of the Comanches. I really love the attention to the details and setting up, I guess, the world, but giving context to the world at the time and explaining how dangerous it was to live out on the frontier. I would not suggest it. It's not really a safe thing. Your family could get attacked and murdered, and not just by Native Americans, by like other settlers or robbers, pillagers, thieves, anything like that. Or your family could just straight up starve too, because you have no backup. If you run out of food, dude, you're done. Another aspect of this book that I really liked is basically the author critiques the idea that in the past that Native Americans were not violent until settlers came, essentially, until 1492, which is incorrect, because especially on the plains, which is where the Comanches are, violence is an integral part of their culture. It's how you will gain status, how you will gain prestige in a society, especially as a man. Counting coup, that was very important, and in order to count coup and to build up, you need to destroy teepees, you need to kill people, you need to knock someone's head. That's how you earn the feathers, by being a badass warrior, essentially. Another thing I learned about the Comanches is that you don't fuck with them, that they're all badass warriors and they're gonna fuck you up. I also enjoyed that this book pointed out, again, the Comanches were in the intersection of the perfect storm of horses and guns to make life on the plains so successful. I really loved just the attention to detail that this book had. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. I don't really have any critiques of it. It's kind of like everything I wanted. And I really enjoyed learning more about Juana Parker's mom. That was a very interesting story because she was a white woman who was kidnapped at a very young age. Her story just gets sadder from there. There's at one point where she's brung back into white society, and at that point she's had multiple children with her husband who she loves. And I'll just let you think about how you would feel if you were ripped away from a society that you've known since like the age of 8, and it's all you've known, and then you're suddenly forced to be in a society that you know nothing about. You can't even really remember the language. It's just a very tragic story. That's not to say that there aren't other tragic stories. There are definitely a bunch of different injustices that happen to Native Americans specifically, but I just think that that story, especially for white people, it's very illuminating. Read the book, it's a good book. So I'm gonna give it that one. Also, a 5 out of 5, if I've not already said that. The next book I read is Sabrina and Corina stories by Kali Figueroa Anstine. I do not know if I am saying that correctly, because I cannot even read my own freaking handwriting. So this is a collection of short stories that particularly focuses on Latinx women, and particularly those who are part indigenous. Some of the stories I really wish were longer because they were so interesting, and I felt like could have explored the topics more. Oh, and they're all like situated in like Denver, Colorado. So their native remains found near Denver, and it's like all in the news and everything, and it just follows this young girl who is dealing with classes, and I think she's in middle school, and she have this take care of this sugar baby with someone else. And I just wish that like the themes connected a little bit more, because like it's there. I just wanted like these stories to be longer, but otherwise I think most of them were pretty good. So if you're interested in looking at kind of like an anthology, I'm gonna give that one a 4 out of 5. The next one I read is Bulletin Opium, Real Life Stories from China After the Tiananmen Square Massacre by Yiwu Liao. This one was not exactly like what I was expecting. I was expecting more of looking at everyday people, but this specifically focuses on the rioters who were protecting the students in the Tiananmen Square massacre. And not even just like the massacre, also the violence that was surrounding the massacre. So anyone that was in surrounding area of Beijing who committed any sort of violence in order to protect the students. A collection of oral accounts that the author painstakingly put together throughout his time in prison. That's how he heard a lot of these stories, because a lot of these people are still in prison, and this happened like, I want to say 40 years ago, approximately. It's kind of crazy. The stories that are told are earth-shattering, and the imagery in this is very vivid. We did learn about the Tiananmen Square massacre a little bit in my high school, but not a lot of attention was put on it. It was kind of like footnote. We didn't really get a lot of explanation to the buildup and the tensions that were building up that led to this explosion of violence. I kind of liked how this book illuminated that more. This has been a book that I've been wanting to read. It's been on my list. I think there is somehow a connection to the Corpse Walker, but I don't have that. Oh my God. I literally do. I totally forgot that I brought the Corpse Walker with me, and it's written by the same author. That's how it's connected. Oh my God, I feel so dumb, because this book is like brought up in Bulletin Opium. That makes me just even more interested to read The Corpse Walker, and yeah, I'm real excited to read that one now. I really enjoyed this one. So if you want some real sad Chinese history, then pick up this one. And if you want just like sort of a deeper understanding of the struggles that these people still deal with. Also, another thing that I really liked is that in this book, it doesn't refer to the event as the Tiananmen Square massacre like most of us people in the West are used to. Instead, they refer to it as most people in China refer to it as, which is by the date. I really like that. These are nice details. Oh, right. Rating, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. Yeah, that was good. That one was good. Next one I read is Chemistry by Wang Weiqi. This was a weird one. I listened to this on audiobook. It just gave me like just this weird like offsetting feeling. It's very short. The main character is never named. It just essentially like deals with her kind of going through her life as a graduate student. She's trying to figure out how exactly to make this big molecule, exactly how to do it, and she's also dealing with her love life and also her friendships and her relationships with her parents and also her own identity struggles. And to me personally, she came off as very like autistic or autistic coded. They kind of address it in the book, but they also kind of hand wave it away. And that felt really weird to me. I know that getting a diagnosis is often stigmatized for ABCs, which is what she is. If you don't know what that is, it's an American-born Chinese. And just in general in Chinese culture, it's not the most accepted thing. I don't know if that was like intentional, if it was trying to say anything, but that kind of felt weird. I can't speak to that representation because I'm not autistic. So I don't know. I would encourage you to go look at Own Voices reviews, see if anyone else is talking about this. I'm gonna kind of give it a 3 because it was weird. I didn't necessarily hate it, but I also didn't necessarily enjoy it. Next is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. For some reason, I keep wanting to call this the Nickelback Boys, which doesn't make any sense. This is a fiction. It won the Pulitzer Prize, but I think it was also like in fiction or something for the Goodreads Choice Awards. This was a solid book. It was shorter than I thought it would be, and it follows these boys as they are each kind of placed into situations that force them to be at Nickel Academy, which is like a correctional academy where these boys are supposed to be getting instruction while being reformed from their criminal activities. And there's lots of abuses of power, and I think it's set in like the 60s. There's lots of that. It is not a light read. If anything like that triggers you, if violence against people of color and discrimination things are hard for you to read, then I would maybe steer away from this one. It doesn't get very descriptive about the actual stuff that happens. It implies a lot of like what is happening. It's very, very sad. A part of what I really loved about this book is that it is actually based on a real academy that existed and actual research. And in the back of the book, there's all sorts of resources that you could look to if you wanted to learn more about the actual people who endured a lot of what the Nickel Boys endured. You can very much tell the attention to detail that the author put in telling these boys' stories through a fictional lens. And again, there is archaeology representation at the beginning and the end of this book, which I'm taking an archaeology class right now, so that's kind of cool. I don't really know whether I want to give this a 4 out of 5 because it was extremely well done. I just did not tend to like enjoy it as I enjoyed some of the other stuff that I rated real highly this month. Next one is The Wicked King by Holly Black, and I'm kind of very apathetic to this series. I don't really care. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it, and my foot is tingling. Like it feels like tiny stabs all into my foot right now, which is so much fun. I just don't really care about the main characters or any of really the dynamics that are going on. I just don't care. I think that I'm not really into like this type of fantasy world in general. A lot of my critiques of the first book kind of stay the same, and I just don't really care. I don't think I'm gonna finish this series. I'm not particularly attached, although I did not see that end coming. That was intense and almost made me want to read the next book to see exactly what was gonna happen and how she was gonna get her revenge. But also I just kind of don't care about any of the characters enough to want to see that fulfilled. I will read it in the future if it like wins the Goodreads Choice Awards or something like that. I'm in between like a 3 and a 4 on this one because I just don't care. Next, I read The Testaments by Margaret Mead, and like I alluded to earlier in this video, I really do not think that this book needed to be written. That being said, I did thoroughly enjoy it. I haven't read a lot of the books that have been coming out that are sequels after a very long span of time has elapsed between the first and the second. I read these in rapid succession. I really enjoyed The Testaments in general. I really liked the 3 perspectives that we were getting. I liked that we didn't really know where they were placed timeline, and I do like how they all came together. I don't really like the implying of like the connection to the first book because I don't really think you needed that. I really enjoy Margaret Atwood's writing, and I think that's what really pulled me along through this book. I thought it was very interesting to look at Canada. I think the reveal that they tried to pull with one of the characters didn't really work out so well for me personally. I don't know how I feel about kind of like the recharacterization of Aunt Lydia. I don't think they gave her motivations enough explanation. I do like the fleshing out of her character a little bit more rather than her just being a villain like she is depicted in the first book. But on the whole, like my general feelings about this book is I don't think it needed to be written, but I am glad it exists because I enjoyed it. I really want to see what the Hulu adaptation does. I want to see what happens, what is going on, because I think there is a lot that you can do in this world to explore. And I've, again, watched like the first 2 episodes, and like they've basically kind of like covered the book, so I'm really interested to see like what happens. I'm gonna give The Testaments a 4 out of 5. This next book is The Vacation Guide to the Solar System by Olivia Kowalski and Jana Borisovich. I cannot pronounce things. So this I found just to be a cool little fun, like relaxing read. I really enjoyed it. I thought the illustrations are beautiful. They're just so fun and playful. And I really liked that. I love all the facts. I love all the sciencey facts. Also, really like the creativity of how some of the hurdles, at least of how we would be visiting and what would we be doing when we would be visiting these different planets. I thought that was fun, and it's structured just like a regular travel book, and I really liked that. I just thought it's a quick read that you can just breeze through real fast, no problem. And this one I read with my eyeballs because I didn't want the only audiobook I could find was on Audible, and I didn't want to use a credit for that because I knew I could just read this with my eyeballs and it'd be fine. Definitely think this is the kind of book that you do not necessarily have to read cover to cover. I think you can just kind of read a little passage. If you're interested in going to like Neptune, you can go read Neptune's thing. It was cute, it was enjoyable, and for that I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. The last book I read, I almost did not finish, but I was determined. And that is Shannon Hale's A Book of 1,000 Days. I really like this. This is a major book from my childhood that I've always enjoyed. I kind of wish that it was longer. I always thought this was like a children's book and not really like a YA book, but it is like branded YA. I don't know. I think you could like write this book again, like more adult skewed. You can make it longer and just flesh out things and just, I remember when I first read this as a child, I thought to myself, I want more stories in this world. I wanted to explore the different realms, and she never wrote a follow-up, which is kind of sad. I wish she did, because I think that would be so cool, because this world is so cool. This world is actually based off of Mongolia. I think it is a welcome breath of fresh air in a genre like fantasy, especially YA fantasy, that is riddled with European-esque fantasy worlds and settings. And I remember reading this as a small kid and just loving how different and how creative it was. Like, looking back on it Now, when I was doing research about Mongolia for classes and stuff, I remember I'm just like, oh wait, like that's totally stuff that was brought in with this book. And Shannon Hale did do like a lot of research to try and bring forth those aspects. I really enjoyed it. I think always there's room for improvement. On Voices Book Review would be good to read about the exact representation. What the fuck is this book about? This is a book about Dashti and her lady Saren, and Lady Saren, she does not want to marry Lord Khazar because Lord Khazar is a dick. I do not mind saying that because he is. Instead, Saren is in love with Contagious. So her father gets pissed at her and tells her, you know what, if you're not going to marry Lord Khazar, then you're going to be put in this tower for 7 years. And Dashti is put in the tower with her because lady has to have a lady's mate. I love Dashti. She's so interesting. People critique her about all of the strict rules that like she follows, but it makes sense in terms of the culture of this world. I think she's just really smart. If you haven't picked up this book, check it out. It's one of my favorite Shannon Hales. They're really great, I think, for young girls to read because fantasy, no, it's not lie, can be a men's club a lot, and I really wish there were more writers like Shannon Hale writing in this genre, especially more towards the adult and young adult side where there is more like female empowerment and more female-centered stories in fantasy. I think that's all I really want to say. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed because I have an AM class tomorrow. Woohoo! I love it so much. All right, thank you guys so much for, I'm gonna set this down. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. What do you think of the books that I read this month? Also, what do you think of my new setup? We're back to this old bookshelf again. It's a little bit sparse because I didn't bring a lot of books back. You want me to do a video about what books I brought to university with me, I'll do it, and why, what my thought process was behind them, I will. All right, goodbye. Good night. Sorry, I'm getting texted by my friends right now. I'm sorry, I am tired today.